All right, everybody. Third time is a charm here. Sorry about the technical issues. Not sure exactly what's going on, but we are having some major issues trying to stream this thing to Facebook. This seems to be the bane of my existence. Seems to be working everywhere else except Facebook. So, oh, hey, now it apparently is working over on Facebook as well now. So we're going to go ahead and hit that button. All right, so we should be good now. All right, so sorry about the technical issues today, guys. Everything should be good to go. Chrissy will be handling your comments in the questions as we're kicking this off. So what we're going to start with today, I got a few different topics we're going to talk about. There's some news on the social media front. We're going to talk a little bit about managing public relations in the midst of all of this chaos with political stuff that's going on. A lot of noise going on there. We're going to talk about how to cut through that. We're also going to be talking about a wild PR crisis that we handled recently and kind of how that opened up, how that played out, and then what the outcome of that was. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Got a few other announcements towards the end, but we'll go ahead and get started here on something interesting that happened over the weekend with TikTok. So this is, oh, hey, apparently we're having some more technical issues. Awesome. Chrissy, if you can see if you can get that image in there. Let's see if anything's going to work here today. Okay. Man, I do not know what is going on with this today. We are having tons of issues. Chrissy, if you could just go ahead. It looks like we're going to have to update these in real time. I'm popping one back in here. Is that working for us? There we go. Okay, so as we're running through these, Chrissy, I'll just need you to go ahead and pop those back in. This is going to be a little bit of a mess here today, guys. So apparently tech is not our friend today. But what we're talking about today is the TikTok ban that wasn't. Now, the platform did go down on January 20th. Actually, it was on January 19th. It was late at night. I remember popping in there to see what was going to happen. And on 120, it did go down. Popped into TikTok, and I went ahead and grabbed this. And of course, nothing's here. Okay, so we're going to pop this one back in. All right, guys, you're going to have to bear with us today. Today's going to be a bit of a mess. But this is the notification that I got on TikTok when we opened this up. Pretty straightforward. They're talking about how this law is forcing them to basically take the platform down, take it out of the app stores, make it unavailable to Americans because of the law that Congress had passed, which Trump did try to get the Supreme Court to push back on. Didn't quite play out that way. Now, this might seem to conflict with some of my earlier predictions. A lot of you guys know that I had been commenting a lot for quite a while about how TikTok is not going to get banned. And then, of course, that happened. But it's not actually quite the conundrum that it seems, because what happened was about 20 minutes after that initial announcement, when you would log into TikTok, it would give you this message, which was kind of interesting. Basically, it says they're fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he's in office. Got a lot of people really riled up. And then about 8 hours later, it was back up. This is kind of interesting. There's still no sale. Nobody else has purchased TikTok. I know I mentioned earlier that Kevin O'Leary had talked about it. There's also some other potential buyers who had talked about it. But what rumors were going around at the time was that Meta had bought it. Now, there's a few different pieces here. One of them was there's a little thought bubble like on top of your profile picture, which you would typically see on TikTok, was now showing, or I'm sorry, was rather on Facebook initially, now was starting to show up on TikTok. Also, it's similar to how Instagram is as well. Instagram also changed from square posts to rectangle posts shaped like TikTok. And a lot of the Instagram ads were now being seen on TikTok. Not just the same ad, but actually, not the same ad run over there, but the ads from Instagram being pushed over to TikTok. And then the most interesting part I saw of all of this was that the code had moved from TikTok's servers to Meta's servers. So what does this mean? Like, for entrepreneurs, what does this change for us? How does this impact how we're using the platform? What role does it play in public relations? All of that. Well, let's talk about what comes next. So the first thing is there's a 90-day extension Trump's trying to get this platform to be able to be purchased and, have an extra 90-day window to do that, because you can't unfold something like this large that quickly. The problem you have is the algorithm was what really made TikTok. So the algorithm is not coming with the sale. They will sell the platform, they will sell, the users, all of that stuff, but the algorithm is not going to be part of that sale. They've already said this. ByteDance is the parent company that owns this. They've said the algorithm is not for sale, and that's really what makes TikTok. I don't know how many of you guys are active there or how many of you have started going there since then, but I can say that it has changed a lot. But one of the things that I'm still not crazy about there is the censorship. I've seen some pretty crazy things happen as far as what they allow, what they don't allow. So that's still going to be an issue. So if you have a business or personality that kind of pushes the boundaries like I do, you could probably expect to get some shit there, get a lot of comments deleted, maybe even get your account banned from time to time. The interesting thing here is that the FTC, if Meta does indeed buy this or has already bought it, the FTC already has an antitrust case against Meta. So that's going to make things a lot more difficult for Meta, for TikTok. And if that's the case, then there's still going to be problems for all of us as entrepreneurs. So, if it does get broken up, now we go through this whole process all over again. I still think there's a lot of value in TikTok. I know that a lot of the journalists are looking at it a lot. So it is a great opportunity to get in front of journalists. It's also a great opportunity to really get a lot of reach out there. But there's definitely some drawbacks to it. So that's what's going on here with TikTok. There's going to be a lot more news to come. I'll keep you guys in the loop on that. But for now, let's jump into cutting through the post-election noise. Now, there's kind of this interesting cycle when throughout the election cycle, you get leading up to it, about 6 months out, everything starts to get really crazy. Then during the election season, pretty much forget about getting through to journalists, forget about, getting anything not political in. And I'm exaggerating a bit, right? Not anything, but it's a lot harder to get anybody's attention during an election season. Then what happens is the election occurs, and then there's a brief period until about January 20th where everything calms down, and then it picks back up. And you're seeing that right now in the news. So what we're going to talk about here is some of the things that we can do to cut through that noise, to get the journalist's attention in ways that are going to work well with what they're already looking for, what they want, what they're paying attention to. So one of the things I want to touch on here is looking at what types of journalists you're trying to reach out to. So at a time like this, where everything is focused on politics, you want to focus on only pitching political stories to any of the political journalists. Like, they're not going to cover anything. I've got a bunch of these journalists who focus on political topics who are personal friends of mine. And right around now, it's even hard for me to get a hold of them. So if they are a journalist that covers anything political, only pitch them political stories. And there are a lot that kind of do double duty. Like, I've got a good friend of mine. She does a lot of politics, but she also does economic stuff. So if they're mostly doing political stuff, anything you pitch them has to be politically focused. Doesn't have to be directly political, right? Doesn't have to be about candidates, but it can be about things related to that, right? They always need content, even right now. And in a lot of cases, they may get sick of covering the same shit over and over, right? Maybe they're covering what the candidate, or in this case now, president in this case, or some of the congressmen, senators, some of the policies that are out there. But they really like to cover some of the other stuff, some of the deeper stuff, the further downstream effects of this. So I'm going to give you a few examples of how you can tie what you're doing into some of the political stuff that's going on. All right, we got another one that's not popping up here. Let's see, which one was that? And all right, we'll pull this one. All right. Doesn't seem to be cooperating with us. Chrissy, see if you can get that. There we go. All right. So this is an example where with a lot of the policies that were being proposed, we pitched a story about what was going on with some of the debt. And for those of you who don't follow the financial side of things super deep, our debt had hit historic levels, so much so to the point where our the interest payments alone on our national debt now exceed our entire defense budget. So this was a great opportunity to pitch a story that really worked well to touch on political topics, but also put our client's expertise in the spotlight. So he broke everything down, really detailed, explained a lot of historical aspects of this, explained what the outcome of situations like this would be. And, they loved the story. It performed really well. Everybody was happy. Another example we've got is, all right, this one's not loading for us today either. All right. This one was shortly after the election. And basically, what we looked at was what things looked like in the investing world following this, because there was a lot of changes. Even though Trump had not yet taken office, there was a lot of changes as far as optimism, what things people were doing in their businesses, anything like that. So he basically broke this down as far as, what consumer sentiment was looking like, how were businesses being run? Did people feel optimistic? Were they now starting to go out and try to expand? All of this kind of stuff. It ties politics back in with his expertise. Another example we've got here is, give me a moment. So this one was and this one was actually right before the election. This was what would a Trump versus Harris race impact the housing market. So he broke down what their various policies were and how those policies would then affect the larger financial picture, but then also down to the housing market, right? Because there's obviously various steps in the picture here. And great opportunity to really highlight his expertise, but tying it to what they're already talking about. So that's a few examples of some of the things that you guys can use for tying your expertise into, oops, I got some stuff moving around here. All right, so tying your expertise and whatever it is, right? All of you guys have something that you're great at, and there's a way to connect politics to damn near all of it. I know a lot of you guys are in the real estate industry, but there's a lot of things in tech. There's a lot of things in, the legal field. So look for opportunities like that. One of the things I want to highlight here, though, is do not pitch political topics to non-political journalists. So if they're not covering any kind of political stuff, leave the political angle out of it. They're sick of seeing that anyway. That's not really their main thing. They're tired of this. So focus on whatever it is they do. Don't worry about trying to tie politics to it. You only want to tie politics to it when they're a journalist who does focus on politics. And that's a great opportunity because while they've been covering this and while that's what they cover, they do want kind of a fresh face to it. The other thing you could do is tie some anti-political angles to whatever it is you do. So let's say, for example, I'm not sure if we've got Trish on here with us. Trish runs a social media marketing agency or more of a consulting type situation. But if she was to pitch the media, an example of something she could run with is how to filter content, political content from your feed, right? This is something a lot of people talk about. A lot of people hate seeing this stuff in their feed 24/7. Everybody's bitching about it. I know Jolene and I were talking about this just yesterday about the absolute insanity that some of these people have around the topic. So a lot of people want to get away from this because they're bombarded. TV, radio, Facebook, all the social media platforms. It's a mess. So if she was to pitch an article, she might talk about it from a technical perspective, right? She might say, oh, here's these browser plugins you can put in that will filter out everything. Or here's how you change your settings in social media to filter out the political content. I know on X, you've got the ability to go in there and you can set certain words that you just won't see any tweets that contain that kind of content. So that would be a great approach to pitch a specifically anti-political angle. Let's say that you're in entertainment. Let's say, so I know some of you guys have seen Daniel from Ready, Steady, Cut on some of the live streams previously. If somebody was to pitch him something entertainment related, you might pitch like 13 movies to watch when you want to get completely away from politics. And that could be a great example of, a story that people would be interested in. If you just want to sit there and kind of zone out on the weekend and you don't want any kind of politics to enter your world in any way, shape, or form, even in movies, then that would be a great angle. So that's another approach that you can take. And then we'll use one more example, psychology. I'm pretty sure Dr. Kaslow is on with us. She's not going to be on camera today, though. But if she wanted to pitch something to any kind of outlet, really, a great example would be how to redirect conversations to something non-political, right? How many of us have had a situation where we're talking to somebody, a friend, a family member, a coworker, and all of a sudden it turns into how great or how terrible XYZ politician is, or what a terrible or what a great policy this is. And you're like, oh, great. I just wish you would shut the fuck up. So everybody wants a diplomatic way to kind of get around that, right? To diffuse that, to deflect it, to switch gears. So that would be an example of a great pitch to pitch to somebody that's specifically anti-political. And then the other thing we can do is work on developing relationships. Now, this is something I've talked about a bunch. I think we went pretty deep into it in either the last or the one before that live stream. Now, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, but it makes a huge difference because when you have that relationship, they're more likely to see your email. They're more likely to pay attention to it, read it, and hopefully respond to it and feature you. So there's a few ways that we can do this. One is by pitching, right? It's part of the job anyway. They're expecting you to pitch them. So just pitch them different stories, different ideas on a regular basis. That might be weekly. It might be a couple times a week, might be a few times a month. It just depends on your circumstances. It depends on how frequently they publish. It depends on a lot of factors. But if you're consistently pitching them and they get used to seeing your name in their inbox, that's going to start to build that name recognition. And that's kind of step one here. The other is to engage on social media. And we talked about this in some of the previous episodes as well, some of the different tactics for that. But again, same idea. The more frequently that you're showing up, the more they're going to recognize your name. And eventually they start to get to know you and like you and trust you. And then the other option is to subscribe where you can. So a lot of journalists will have their own Substack or their own newsletter or whatever. If you subscribe to that, first of all, they'll see that you subscribed. They're probably not going to recognize you from that alone, but now you're getting their content on a regular basis, which also gives you another angle to go and engage with all of their content. So every time they publish something, it's probably going out in that newsletter. This gives you an opportunity to see everything that they're doing and go engage on it and further build that relationship. Now, this can be the difference between a pitch getting seen and accepted or completely ignored. Give you guys a great example of this. Good friend of mine is a publicist, absolute world-class, great publicist and a great friend of mine. And I had sent her an introduction to a publicist a while back, and she pitched this lady a great story. It was perfect on all counts. The pitch was great. It was timely. There was stuff in the news about it at that time, and it was perfect for what she usually covers. And I saw the pitch. I saw every part of it. Everything was great, but she got no response. Sent a couple of follow-ups, still no response. Now, in this case, this was a TV anchor that I knew quite well. We would have lunch regularly. We went to events together, lots of stuff like that. So if I call her, she answers the phone. And so my friend had mentioned that she wasn't getting any response here. And so I said to her, well, listen, would you like me to say something to her? And she's like, yeah, if you don't mind. So I sent this lady a text, this journalist, and it was like just a few words, right? It was barely even a sentence, not even grammatically correct, right? It was just, hey, just a couple details on the thing, and then thumbs up or thumbs down emojis. And she's like, I love it. Let's do it. Right. The difference there was the relationship. My friend pitched it. It was technically correct on all aspects, but it got nowhere because that relationship wasn't there. When I reached out, it turned into a story. So this highlights the importance of really building these relationships and continuing to nurture them over time, that's going to give you the inside angle there. All right. We're going to go ahead and roll into what I thought was a pretty interesting story over the last couple of weeks here now. This is another one that's not popping up for us. All right. Today is the episode of technical issues. Where are we? There we go. All right. Anatomy of a PR crisis. So this is going to be a case study on a real-world PR crisis that we recently handled. Now, we're still a little bit in the works on this, but where this started was a text message that I received a couple weeks ago from a friend of mine. Now, this is somebody that I've worked with, I've known for years, and let's see if we can find where the hell it is, why it's not popping up. So basically, I got a text message about a guy who was going through a PR crisis. It was literally happening at that moment, and he wanted me to help the guy out. So not a problem. We got on the phone, we got together, we started working on it immediately, and it unfolded pretty quickly. So what happened was there was a plethora of issues, some his fault, some not, that ended up resulting in a reporter doing a story on him. And it's not good. And the problem with a situation like this is, now in this case, he's a real estate investor, and he runs a couple of mobile home parks as well as several other properties. What happens when you run into a situation like this is it then becomes more difficult to fill your properties, right? It's hard to find tenants if they think you're a bad landlord, if they think you're going to provide substandard housing, which is not really what was going on here. But because of the press, because of the subsequent social media fallout, because of all of this stuff going on, it created the impression that he was not really keeping up with the properties, which was not true. It also makes it more difficult to do joint ventures with people, right? If you want to team up with somebody to take down a bigger deal, they want to know that the person that they're dealing with is solid, that they're reliable, that they're going to do the right thing. So that's another area that this causes problems in. And then it also can make it more difficult to secure funding. So we ended up in kind of a perfect storm situation here. What happened was, like I mentioned, he had a couple of mobile home parks as well as some other properties. There was a big freeze. This all started back around the 8th of this month. There was a big freeze at that time, and it froze a bunch of pipes, which then led to them breaking and creating problems with water. People didn't have water because the pipes were frozen and broken. At the same time, there was an administrative error that led to 2 of the parks completely losing power for a period of time, all while everything's very cold. So obviously people were very unhappy. That led to a thread in a Facebook group about local rentals that were available. And of course, you know how people are, the mob kind of piled on, and everybody started attacking him. And then everybody started encouraging everybody to contact the media. And that's where it got really interesting. He got contacted by a journalist, and she had a very clear hostile agenda. She even made some veiled threats. And the interesting part about this was she had a legal background, and she came across a court case that was coming up where, how do I explain this without getting overly technical? There's things that happen sometimes in the courts where they will come and they'll give like a demolition order, or they'll come with some heavy-handed tactics to get you to do certain things, right? They want the investors to do X, Y, Z, or, you know, they're trying to strong arm them into certain things. And then basically, once you get there, you go to court and they talk a little bit, and then they're like, all right, well, here's what you need to do. But they've got that in place as kind of like a carrot and stick situation. So that was what happened in this case. She had a legal background. She knows that that's what it was, that it wasn't actually that he was doing anything wrong. It was just kind of how that system worked. But she misrepresented it. And she basically told him that she was going to frame it in that way. And so that was a huge red flag. But for me, it was also a little bit of a green flag because it gave us some ammunition to kind of fight back on this. So this was when we came into the picture, and we sat down and we developed a strategy. Outlined all of his talking points, what to say, what not to say, how to say everything, because how you say it makes a huge difference as well. And then also the really powerful part of this is how to speak in a way that prevents people from clipping what you say into sound bites that are out of context and make it seem like you're saying something that you're really not. And that was huge. And then from there, we went through a lot of media training and role playing where I played the role of a combative journalist, somebody who's trying to tear him down. And we went through this over and over and over until he got to the point where he was damn near unflappable. Now, at the same time, we started to develop what I call supporting units. This is kind of a terminology from the military where you've got, your main unit, but then you've got these other units that serve additional roles to kind of help in accomplishing the mission. So what we were looking at here was his current happy tenants, any of his business associates that he had a good relationship with, and several journalists that I knew. And the last one I think was probably my favorite, because what we did was we got a couple of journalists reach out to that journalist and basically say to her, we're looking at doing a story about media misrepresenting things, right? Reporting things that aren't actually true or misrepresenting the situation. And that got her attention in a very big way. She was not as interested in moving forward with that story at that point. And these were very large outlets. So it definitely changed the dynamic of that situation. And we were making some progress. And that was when I got another message from him that he had made some more mistakes. So what happened here was, first, he sent, well, not he, but the employee, and this was the same employee that made the administrative error before, sent a message erroneously to all of their 500 plus, I think it was almost 600 residents, basically saying that power was going to be cut off, and it was only supposed to go out to certain people who had not paid their bills. At the same time, there was some other water issues again. Residents had been flushing things down the toilets that weren't supposed to be flushed, which then led to all kinds of problems that had to be fixed. Right around that time was when he was contacted by a second journalist. Now, this guy kind of played good cop. He said he knew about this other journalist and didn't think she was going to do a fair job. He wanted to really tell the truth about this guy. In reality, he ended up doing the exact opposite of that. And at that point, the first journalist got even more aggressive, and she wanted to do an interview with him. So we gave him the go-ahead, but we laid out a game plan. Now, we did a lot of mindset prep ahead of time, kind of showed him, again, you have to get your mind right before you're going to go into an interview like that, because if you're on edge, if you're tired, if you're nervous, you're going to slip up. You're going to say things that either you don't mean or were not correct or things like that. So we had to kind of prep his mindset to get him on the right track to go into that and be as effective as possible. And then we also took a guerrilla warfare approach to this. So one of the things we did was, first of all, we worked on a lot of talking points, right? Both in terms of what he's saying, but also in terms of how he's saying it. And a big part of that, like I mentioned earlier, was staging it in such a way that it makes it very difficult to clip anything he's saying out of context. And we had kind of a guerrilla warfare approach as well, in that we made sure that he recorded that entire interview on his own. So if she went and tried to misrepresent everything, we've now got full video and audio of what was actually said. And that would be a very, very powerful deterrent in her presenting anything that's not accurate, right? And then, of course, the biggest part of this is him getting out there and taking accountability. Yes, there were mistakes, and there were also things that were out of his control. But as an entrepreneur, as a leader, it's his responsibility to fix those, whether he caused them or not. So by being open, by being transparent and taking accountability for the problems, that puts him in a lot stronger position. Now, the outcome of this was, let's see if this one's going to load. Nope, not going to load for us too. All right, pull this one up. Not sure if you guys will be able to see this or not if you're not on a big screen, but basically the damage was minimized. When she interviewed him that time around, she had a completely different tone. She was a lot more agreeable, a lot nicer, a lot less combative. And she has not yet published her story, and we don't know if she's going to. But basically, everything that we laid out put him in a very strong position. He was very happy about the direction it went. And regardless of how it plays out with her, he's in a better position now. My image just disappeared. All right. But there we go. Okay. So anyway, he's super happy. Everything's strong. We've got this recording if she does misrepresent anything. But based on her tone, based on her behavior, it looks like she's going to be a lot more reasonable. And the cool thing about this is he's now better prepared for any of these situations in the future. So how he responds is exponentially better than it was before. He knows what to say. He knows what not to say. He knows how to phrase things, how to structure everything he's saying. And that puts him in a lot stronger position, not only because he's communicating more effectively, but because he has that skill, he's now calmer and more confident. So he's not going to overreact, or rather, he's less likely to overreact. This also enables him to focus on solving the problems because he doesn't have to worry as much about getting blasted by the media. Like, if that happens, it happens, but he knows how to handle it. But because he has that skill set, he can now focus, because he's not worried about this unknown over here. He now can focus on fixing the problem, which is really the key to all of this. And then as a result of this all, he's now nurtured better relationships with his tenants. So, as part of going out to fix this, he went out door to door and talked face to face with all of his residents. He's made inroads with them in ways that he hasn't before. So now, not only are they happier, but they also have a better relationship in general. In fact, another journalist did come out and interview him, or try to interview, not him, I'm sorry, some of the tenants. And they actually slammed the door in the journalist's face. And they're like, oh, fuck you guys. Get out of here. We don't want to talk to you. We're happy with him. We like him, right? Which is great. And then another benefit here was, in this happening, he identified holes in his business process and he fixed them. So these problems should not happen again in the future. Now, that's a constant ongoing evolution. You're always going to find these problems. You're always going to work on fixing them. But this helped him fix a lot of really big problems. And it's going to put him in a stronger position in the long run. So I'll keep you guys in the loop on how this goes, but so far it's gone pretty well. He's very happy with the outcome. And it's a great example of what can go wrong or what can go right when you find yourself in a situation like this. And it all comes down to how you handle it. All right, so next up, I'm going to give you guys a little teaser on something that we're going to be announcing here shortly. And of course, this one's not loading too. All right, let's see. There we go. So I mentioned this in the group yesterday, I think it was. This is a strategy that I came across or came up with probably about 6 weeks ago. And about 4 weeks ago, I started putting it into place and started testing the hypothesis. I've talked to a few of the members in the private public relations declassified community. We're actually going to be running through some examples, or running through some, we'll call it like a beta test, right? I've done the strategy on my own accounts. We're going to be basically running some of the members through those same strategies, showing them exactly how to do it. And in doing that, blow up their accounts on X as well. Now, X has become an amazing platform. The reach is phenomenal. And it really gives you a great opportunity to connect with a lot of people that you're not seeing on a lot of other platforms. I know it's especially big when it comes to real estate. There's a huge real estate community there. I love it because that's where a lot of journalists are. I've been using, back when it was Twitter, now X, I've been using it for years because that's where they've always historically been. It's a great place to find and engage with journalists, but a lot of other industries have strong communities on X. So what we're going to pull up here is, I'm going to pull up some stats here on what this has looked like. And okay, this one too. All right, so I'm going to give you right now this is the 4-week stats. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this on your screens, depending on how big your screen is, but over the last 4 weeks, I have generated 1.7 million impressions on X. Tons of engagement, tons of new relationships built from this, tons of opportunity have come from this. Now, to put this in context, we'll pull up what this looked like before I started this strategy. So here's a 3-month chart. And I think it's pretty clear to see exactly where we started implementing this strategy. At this point, I'm generally seeing an average of about 40,000 impressions a day on the small side. I've been as high as nearly 200,000 on a day. So this is a great strategy that we've been testing out. We're getting ready to run through. I know we've got Jolene on here with us today. She's going to be one of the people that we're running through on the beta test. We've got a couple of other members as well. This is going to be a great strategy. We're going to be teaching this in the community at some point, probably within the next couple of weeks. It's not going to be in the free Facebook group. It's going to be in the private community. If anybody wants to get access to that, you guys let me know, or actually reach out to Chrissy in the group and she'll get you set up for that. But this is going to be only in the private community where we're going to, once we run everybody through the beta test, we're going to then teach this in the community, step by step, every little detail, and walk you guys through all of it. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about, pull this back up. All right. All right. Before you talk to the media, always make sure that you are 100% prepared. So what are we talking about here today? This is a little story that hit the news yesterday where the Philadelphia mayor is basically being ridiculed because of a misstep in front of the media yesterday.
E-L-G-S-E-S, Eagles! Let's go Birds!
Now, I am no spelling teacher, but I don't think that's how you spell Eagles. I guess I applaud her audacity. She's very proudly spelling this out for everybody, but holy shit. Just, I don't know what to say about that. Just be ready for what seems to be pretty basic shit. Bottom line, if you're going to be in front of the media saying anything, be prepared. Understand what you're talking about. If you're going to spell something, I guess make sure you know how to spell it. It's not really that hard. We weren't talking about quantum physics here. So just make sure to prepare before you go in front of the media in any way, shape, or form so that you do not look like this lady does. All right. Next up, we're going to go ahead and roll to Q&A for a moment. I know we got a couple queued up here. Jolene, nope. All right. Jolene was going to, but now she's not able to, it looks like. All right. Do we have any other questions? Oh, she does. Okay.
I'm good. All right. Am I on?
Yes, you're in.
Just telling my family to be quiet.
Ah.
When you're talking about, well, obviously with like the Eagles misspelling, perhaps she should have had a piece of paper in front of her that said Eagles on it. I don't know. But for more complex things, how would you prep somebody to go in front of the media so that big mistakes don't happen? Like, other than having note cards, because that looks ridiculous too, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So how would you prep somebody for that?
That's a great question. So if we jump back to the PR crisis that we handled, what we did in his case was, and he had no media training. He was very nervous. He felt like he was going to be attacked, and he was. What we do is first of all, we know what the media is going to typically ask, right? If you have a problem, they're going to attack that problem. They're going to look at all the ways that you screwed up, all the ways that you could have avoided it. They're going to look at every possible way that they could paint you in a negative light. So for him, that was kind of an uncomfortable conversation because several times I threw him questions that he was like, holy shit, like they might ask me that. I was like, yeah, they might. It's like, There was one example that I gave him where we were going through some of the practice and role play stuff. And I was like, well, so as I'm playing the role of the reporter, I'm like, so listen, man, I'm seeing a lot of problems here. You got, this and that and that. It's like, what's going on over there? Are you guys broke? Like, are you guys having money problems? What are you doing over here? Right. And he's like completely like dumbfounded, and he's like, stumbling for a minute. And I was like, exactly. That's what you need to be ready for. You need to be ready for things that are going to be like a right hook, just completely blasting you out of nowhere. And we went through that over and over and over to the point where first we got to the point where he thought he was comfortable. And then I would throw additional curveballs at him. And then we got to the point where he was comfortable again there. And then I just kept throwing more and more at him until he got to the point where it was just like, you and me talking. Like, you could throw some outlandish shit at me and we're just going to roll with it, right? It's not a big deal. So it's that practice, that repetition, just like riding a bike. You go get on a bike. I bet you haven't ridden a bike in 20 years, right? I haven't. But you get on it and you still know how because of all of the repetition you had when you were a kid. So it comes down to knowing your material, knowing it cold. And then from there, you want to be calm, you want to be confident, and just kind of rock from there.
Great advice. Thank you, Jeremy.
My pleasure. Any other questions from you, Joe?
Not at all.
All right. Chrissy, I don't know if we've got anybody else that had any questions. If not, we'll go ahead and roll to the PSA. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and roll to Jeremy's PR PSA. And this is handling a PR crisis effectively, rather, is less about the problem and more about how you respond. And I think that's true of most things in life, right? So to solve this effectively, you want to have a plan. You want to know what it is you're going to do. And to do that, you have to know what your goal is. From there, you want to prepare your talking points. Don't just kind of go off on tangents. Don't go rambling, but know exactly what you need to say. What points do you need to make to convey your message? What do you need to do to get people to understand your perspective? Next thing you need to do is you need to take accountability. If you've screwed up, own that shit. The problem I see a lot of people make is they'll make a mistake and then it's, oh, well, yeah, but my employee did that and I didn't know about that. So like, we're trying to fix it now. Doesn't matter. You're the owner of the company. You're the CEO. You're the manager, whatever. The buck stops with you. So doesn't matter whose fault it is. Doesn't matter how it happened. It's your fault. Own it. Take accountability. And then from there, you have to fix the problem and not fix it to the point where you think it's fixed, but fix it to the point where the people who were hurt or damaged by it feel that it was fixed. So that's it in a nutshell, guys. I'm going to drop a message in the group a little bit later on here once we get wrapped up. But just want to remind you guys about the X strategy for growth. We're going to be talking about that here shortly. But if you guys are interested in taking part in that, go ahead and let Chrissy know in the group. You can just drop a comment in Facebook, or ideally do it in Facebook, because I know the comments on LinkedIn will disappear after the live is done. I think the same happens on YouTube as well. So go to the Facebook group. In fact, there is a QR code up there. If you guys hit that QR code, if you're not already in the group, it will take you there. Go ahead and join. Drop a comment in there. Let Chrissy know that you guys want to participate in that, and we'll get you the info on how to do that. And then there was something else I was going to share, and I'm drawing a blank as to what it is now. But I will come back to that stuff. We'll drop some info in the group here shortly. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Thanks, everyone.